Chapter 5. Summer of 70. The summer of 1970 was a big turning point for me personally and musically. I turned 17 that year in Atlanta while spending my summer vacation from boarding school. While the first 2 summers away from boarding at Woodward Academy were spent back home in New Jersey, this summer was spent in Atlanta. I stayed with my grandmother in her apartment about a block from Georgia Tech. I'll admit that having a girlfriend tipped the scales in that decision, but I really did want to be around Atlanta away from school. The music bug had already bitten me. At the same time, the music scene in Atlanta was blossoming. Woodstock had taken place the year before in 1969. Everyone was still trying to hold on to that communal attitude, including chanting to make the rain stop. It was all about doing your own thing, trying to find yourself, and making your own statement. The world, not unlike today, was in turmoil on a different level. Hippies were dodging the draft and the system any way they could. They were continually at war with the straights. Music was the escape, the refuge, and the glue that held whatever it was at the time together. Now starting to take in stuff by Jimi Hendrix, Quicksilver, and Steppenwolf, my musical obsession was really beginning to manifest itself. Atlanta's tight squeeze area on Peachtree Street, known then as the Strip, was standing room only with hippies and cops. The era of bell-bottoms, tie-dyed shirts, help your brother, spare change, and communal living were the idealistic dreams of the generation then. It seemed a shame that it only lasted for one summer. I do remember the musicians' attitude, that of just enjoying the music they were playing. It was the music that made us feel good and gave us hope. What I don't remember are bands vying for a place on MTV, battling for corporate sponsorships or musical manufacturers' endorsements. These fine musicians certainly didn't have the stardom dropped in their lap as a result of winning a TV game show or showing up on YouTube. During the week, I worked at a sandwich shop on Peachtree at 8th Street for $1.50 an hour. Sounds pretty low now, but at the time it was okay for a high school summer job. I would go in around 11 a.m. in time for the lunch hour and work until around 3 p.m. The hours were good, since I wasn't a morning person, at least while I was away from school. At the same time, having the afternoon free was nice. My girlfriend had gotten an administrative job through her surgeon father at a psychiatric clinic a few blocks away from where I worked. I would walk there and wait for her to get off work before heading over to Piedmont Park to hang out. The park was very pleasant during the late afternoons and evenings. Frisbees were flying. Hippies were playing music when they weren't asking for spare change or dropping acid. It was a simple and harmless time. Most of all, it was a safe time. There was some great music being played in Atlanta's Piedmont Park on the weekends that summer. Some great concerts were also taking place at the old Municipal Auditorium. On different nights, we watched The Who and Steppenwolf from the front of the stage for a $5.50 ticket. Of course, people were talking about this other band from Macon, Georgia that was setting up and playing on certain Sundays at Piedmont Park. It was the Allman Brothers Band. When they weren't playing, other bands were filling the bill on a regular basis. Many people have stories they could tell about watching the brothers in the park. I was only there once, and my memories of that day are vague. Since I didn't do drugs, maybe I have retained more than some. I do recall great music, a beautiful day, and a lot of people having a good time. This one Sunday in June saw the Peace Festival held in Piedmont Park. The park concerts were popular as a result of the impact of the Allman Brothers. This event started around noon and was to go until whenever. I don't remember how these parties were organized and promoted, but it seemed there wasn't the now bureaucratic and corporate red tape, at least as much, standing in the way. All we knew and cared about was that there was free music in the park. The early acts had names like the Sweet Young'uns, the Stump Brothers, Hydra, and Celestial Voluptuous Banana. A Southern gospel group, Nancy Harmon and the Victory Voices, totally out of their element, also made an appearance. They were definitely following the biblical command to go forth into the world. An announcement was later made in the afternoon that a band called Eric Quincy Tate would be taking the stage. The announcer said for everyone to prepare for an experience like no other. My next recollection as I write this is one of this crazy blonde-haired hippie drummer singing with his eyes closed and leaving the audience mesmerized. When they went on, I couldn't tell if he was a drummer singing or a singer drumming. He was absolutely consumed in his zone as he rocked this audience. Even though I was only 16, I could tell he possessed a talent and natural ability above and beyond any of the other bands. I didn't know where this band had come from, but the style of this hippie drummer vocalist would be one that haunted me for a long time. In the early evening, the original band Mountain had their gear set up for a set, but then the rains came. The Woodstock rain chant started, but it got dark, and the rains continued. Days later, while walking to my little summer job at the sandwich shop on Peachtree Street, I saw a flyer for this same band, Eric Quincy Tate. They were appearing at the Bowery. The Bowery was a saloon at the corner of Peachtree and 10th Street. Being a teenager, I didn't have a prayer of getting near this place, nor did I ever try to get in. But I do remember being across the street one evening as the door opened and providing a view down the length of the room. There was that wild blonde hippie behind the drums singing his heart out. This band would surface again that summer at an underage club on Claremont Road in North Atlanta called the Electric Eye. Back at school in that fall of 1970, that great music that consumed me all summer had left its mark. All of the other music I was listening to, such as Cream, Free, The Allmans, The Who, and Jimi Hendrix, to name a few, was fueling the fire. It wasn't very long before the news was reverberating that Hendrix had died. I will always remember where I was when. Now I was really bearing down on trying to get better on the guitar by this time. Playing since age 9, I had never been taught or exposed to all of this cool music. It was getting to be all I really wanted to do. I knew where I was headed. From time to time during my junior year, Eric Quincy Tate was performing here and there around Atlanta. I was locked away in school by this time. The Northside Strip area where the hippies spent the summer hanging around the Bowery was now left to the hardcore freaks. The fair-weather hippies and schoolboys like myself had gone back to their real lives. Many years later, the band's bassist, David Cantwine, would later tell me that each EQT band member was paid $5 a night and 2 pitchers of beer for the Bowery gig. He also said that they had initially come to Atlanta and were paid $3,500 for a week-long gig in underground Atlanta. Thinking they had hit the big time, they decided to make a go of it in the Big A. Few gigs from then on really matched the first jackpot they had hit upon their arrival, although they did develop a loyal cult following which is still alive and well today via the internet. That summer ended and the hippies left, leaving only the hardcore riff-raff and junkies to themselves. Although I had listened to Mountain's Mississippi Queen, Theme for an Imaginary Western, and for Yazgur's Farm many times the year before, Leslie West's guitar licks were starting to haunt me. One cold morning in my school dorm, a radio newscast woke me up saying that Janis Joplin had died. The fact that everything changes was beginning to reveal itself to me. And of course, the copies of the Allman Brothers Band's first album kept showing up. Music was now a big part of my life, but there would be more miracles just around the corner in 1971.